How's it going, everyone? You're listening to Free Kick, the official AFLW fantasy podcast, and here to review Week 10 with me, I've got Will, I've got Jono, and I've got the highest ranked fantasy player of the round, Liam. Maybe let's start off with you, Liam. I know that you're going to want to talk about it, so let's get straight to it. Layer us in smug.
I really resent the insinuation that I am unbelievably smug and that I would rock up and just lord it over you all.
And yet...
You've not given us much evidence to the contrary.
I would like it very well known that I didn't even notice that I had a good rank until I was messaged with 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. Hey Liam, you should probably go and check the rankings. You're about to go into first for the week. I hadn't even been looking.
No, I mean, it's a very, very good achievement, very worthy of bragging. That's why we're giving you ample airtime now. How's it feel?
It feels weird because, to be honest, it wouldn't have happened in almost any other week. It was the fact that there were so many bullets this weekend that meant that my team that was just limited to 3, and the fact that I didn't make any trades that really, underperformed expectations, that managed to push me into first. I think that if Courtney Hodder had played, I'm not making first for the week. I think if Lucy Wales had played, again, very unlikely that I would have been first for the week. Conan out, Malloy out, Window out, all of these highly owned players who've been premiums in our sides were out. And I just copped the minimum, a number of bullets, and managed to skate through on kind of everything else. So I'm very excited. It feels very weird to be ranked first for the week. Getting the fantasy email where it says, oh, here's your rank for the week. And, congrats to, and it's usually just some person, random person's name, blah, blah, dot, will.h was first ranked for the round with
some random.
It's quite weird to see Liam.t as the number one ranked coach for the week in that email.
So with that in mind, I'm assuming you've done very well this week. Are you the highest ranked coach on the podcast?
I do believe it's eminently possible.
I mean, you do that another couple of times. This is definitely going to get itself reversed very quickly.
Well, Jono, you have been on the steadiest of steady climbs, and I have just been pinging around everywhere. Like, my rank increases have been, in the 40s and 50s recently, and then it also goes for the number of ranks that I'm falling at some weeks as well, where you've just kept the steady climb going.
I think I've scored within 100 almost every single round. There's just like this tiny window that I score in, and you've had this is the second time this season you've had a massive score. This isn't even your highest score for the year, if I'm right. You had a 1680 at some point.
Yeah, I have had some very big weeks. I think that was the week that I jumped up just to pip you at rank 40 and you were at 42, and then we've diverged from there. That was about 3 weeks ago.
The ships passed in the night once again.
They did indeed.
I thought this might be coming, just on the basis that it's the second time this season we've lined up against each other in our home and away, personal league here, and you've just taken the chocolates yet again.
I would apologise and say I'm sorry, but I'm not.
No, don't at all. Don't at all. You only get to come first round rank so often in your life.
Indeed. Well, would you like to run us through your shipping report then, Liam, while we're here? Top to bottom.
Oh, absolutely.
For the round rank.
You are going to ask what football games I saw this weekend? I watched North Melbourne and Adelaide, by the way, in person, which is appointment viewing. And North Melbourne are just that good. And Adelaide trotted out the same game plan they have for the last month, and funnily enough, it didn't work. So I had great fun at a record crowd at Arden Street, which was great to go and see. Team scored a 1,676 points.
Yeah, what was that weekly rank, Liam?
That was first.
Nice.
That was a weekly rank of first. And it means that I've moved up 40 spots, so I'm up at rank 29 at the moment, and it wasn't until 2 minutes before the game that lockout lifted that I actually moved up to 29th because Britt Gutnecht got a very late +3 added. My good call was actually, I have Will to thank for this, was bringing in Charlie Mullins.
2 weeks too late, Liam. 2 weeks
as
too
my
late.
trade for Piper Window. That went beautifully. And then also, I had to make the call on my trade for Chloe Malloy, and I decided to go with Bonnie Toogood over Imogen Barnett. My bad call was going with Riddell as my C, as opposed to going with Garner, who pushed her way up towards the disposal record in limited time on ground, particularly in the fourth quarter. And then my blind side was the fact that it's taken until round 10 for Matthew Buck to realise that the best clearance player at Carlton is Maddie Gearin, and she should be spending at least 50% of the game in the midfield. She was incredible, their best midfielder against St Kilda, and it's outrageous that we're this late in the season for it to finally happen again.
Man, if you'd captained Garner, imagine what your weekly rank could have been.
Oh, jeez, what would
-1.
We're crossing over to the unreal numbers.
Now, I haven't paid attention to what anyone else has got because we've been so preoccupied with Liam. Who's up next?
Well, it's definitely not me.
If we're counting down this week, which we seem to be going up and down all over the place, if we're going down by the ranks, then it's going to be me next with a 1605. I thought I had a pretty good week, but weekly rank of 30th, so I'm pretty chuffed with that, to be honest. And it has climbed me up a little bit further from 20th up to 16th, so ever so slowly climbing up there. I think the good call this week was just backing in Shelley Heath, and going straight in off the injury. I was very chuffed that worked out, and it's a little ridiculous that it did, so pretty happy with that. I did the opposite on Liam on my bad call here, though, and I went Barnett over Toogood, which the first half I thought I was on for a winner at 35 at the half, and then switched to become the deepest forward for the Pies, and Frederick moved into the ruck, and honestly looked pretty good, so it might be something to stays. And I think we had an 8-point third quarter and then a -3 point last quarter, which really was a kick in the guts there. So not my greatest call there, trying to pivot last minute from that hotter laid out. And my blind side was, after being in the midfield for most of this season, Jess Wrench switching back to the backline and doing the best blanket job on Ashley Maloney that we have seen all season. Absolutely shut her down and was a big reason why they got the chocolates in that game.
Truly devastating as a Maloney owner. But, I mean, Jess Wrench is on for a killer year. Like, she's already shown so much improvement. So, I mean, I can't be angry about that. Do you also have Maloney? Is this why that's your blind side?
I do. I have Maloney. Maloney and who's the other one? Barnett were the two reasons that I fell so far behind Liam, despite having a pretty good round.
Yep. Well, Will, over to you next. It hurts to put you above me, but let's carry on.
Yeah, it's really one of the few things keeping me going at this point. Yeah, after the highs of the 1,600 point scores, we're now going down to my wonderful score of 1,430. So apologies, Mel, because I know we're going even further down for you. Weekly rank of 1527. Put me up an incredible 5 ranks, so, absolutely tearing back up the board now. My good call was bringing in Emma Carney for a 77 on the cheap, which was reasonably good. My bad call, Gardner scored, 123, and I thought, I might chase a higher score, and of all the players, I picked Bowers, which wasn't the right call, unfortunately. Only just cracked a ton thanks to a massive last quarter. But really should have just gone for Ash Riddell. That would have been probably a pretty easy one, in honesty. My blind side is that my backline is bad now. And we're going to talk a bit about this a bit later on.
Blindsided by your own team.
Yeah, a lot of them have basically reached that end of the line point. And the reason it's a blindside is because they have all reached that end of the line point at the exact same time, which is not ideal. With the exception of Emma Carney and the ever-reliable Tilly Lucas-Rod, I have several players who had a bit of a role change, looked really good, and now look like they're no longer playing in those really fantasy-friendly roles, and I can't really get rid of all of them at once. So, yeah, that's a bit awkward for me, to be honest.
Well, it gives me hope. I'm pretty far behind you, but it gives me something to cling to. I had a huge 1370 this week, woo, which meant that I continue to slip further down. I'm now in the 1200s. My only good call was bringing McLaughlin back in, who put up a very impressive 102. Happy with that one. Bad calls. The overarching bad call is going on holiday in the middle of the AFLW season. Will I do it again next year? Yes. But it really messes with your trades when you're just out of the loop for a while. So overall, my team is Avo, as reflected in my rank, but it's going to be very difficult to bring it back to good from here. Holding Richardson also, though, is a highlight. She lost 142k, which is, was frustrating. I didn't get to watch that many games this weekend, but I watched that one, and boy, that was not pleasant. And then also Maloney, so I had a couple of very low scores on field. Edmonds in the ruck, only 54. I was so hot on her last week. I thought I was absolutely laughing this one to the finish line with my last-minute Morfitt trade to Edmonds, but just a low ruck contest game, and Lauren Bella being back in just meant 54. Not really what I was looking for there. But yes, my objective for the rest of the season is to beat Will. And in the absence of that, because that's feeling quite unlikely, is slip no further. We kind of missed you guys. What's your goals for the rest of the season?
So
based on where you are. I think it sets the scene of the trades we're talking about.
So my goal is obviously to beat Mel and continue to beat Mel, but also to hopefully make it to the top 100. That would be ideal. If
100,
if not,
top 100.
If not, we'll go for top 1,000. Look, it's only 1 degree if we're going in base 10, so, you know, it's all the same. It's all relative, you know. Jono's like 2 degrees in base 10 above me going for that top 10. I'm going for top 100, if not top 1,000. You know, we'll see how we land.
Yeah. I think I'm as close as I am, 16th. I was wondering if I should be going for the win, but I've been tracking how far I am behind first place over the last 3 weeks, and I am climbing, which is exciting. But I'm climbing like 30, 40 points at a time, and I'm still 178 behind at this point of the season. So, you know, at this rate, I'm going to need, you know, at least a 17 round season for me to get any ground on the top spot, and I don't think that's going to happen.
The last minute fixture change to add 5 games to the back end of the season.
You never know. It's someone I hope
might
for.
give you a chance.
But I'm about 40 points behind 10th spot. I think I can chase that. So that's going to be my goal in the next couple weeks.
I like it. Reasonable.
And I'm going for top 20. I'm also, you know, trying to be reasonable, knowing that my cash gen is not exactly spectacular. I'm not sitting with a whole lot of bench cash or coverage. So I'm just going to, you know, aim reasonably. The top 20 rank would be lovely.
I think the biggest problem for you, Liam, is that with 2 weeks left, there's a strong chance you could be top 10, you know, as of next week, and then still finish somewhere in the like 40s. The way your team either scores really, really well or doesn't. Yeah. So your range is probably the biggest of the lot of us.
Yeah, I think it was tough. The worst week I've had was the week that I had to trade out Ash Richards, when I had also been considering bringing in Courtney Hodder, who will become very relevant in a minute. But beyond that, I have either held rank or gained. So I'm hoping that the variance was just a thing of the past. It's just steady gains from now on. And I'm only 35 points behind 20th at the moment, or 35, and I am 110 points behind 10th.
How far do you reckon you are behind maybe 16th?
Yeah, can I have some more stats about approximately where you sit in these high ranks?
I can't believe I'm copying this slander when Jono has talked in detail about all the ways he's trying to make it to first and then how many points he's behind 10th. And I'm very clearly looking at this on the fly.
You're just so much easier to make fun of, Liam. I'm sorry.
Liam, you finished top of the rankings this week. We've got to find some way to pull you down a peg because you should absolutely be flying.
Thank you.
And as host, I've decided that this week's rule is
no,
the person that
no.
finishes first for the round reads the watch and wait scoreboard. So Liam,
That is
your
not
punishment
happening.
for doing well.
Mel, if we go on an average of the rule across all of the weeks this season, the average position is it goes to the coach in last. Therefore, you have to do the watch and wait scoreboard.
I just assumed I was going to do it anyway because that's just how this thing works. So I'm going to just take it away from here. Well done, Liam and Mel, for hashing out that one. Basically, top coach. Noffy, we have a problem. Caleb, congratulations. You have moved into first place with 2 weeks left. That is a very good thing. Had a round rank of 89 from a 1583 to get themselves into first place with 15,282 points. Very well done, Caleb. Kevin and Vague Prob W, only 14 points behind in second. And there's only 100 points between first and eighth. So it's going to be a very close finish. And as we've talked a bit about in the previous segment, there's a lot that can happen. If you have a really, really good round, you can jump quite a bit. So if you are floating around that top 100, who knows where you might finish up. Top lit weekly score was Liam's team, Emeritus Professors. So well done to Liam. Hopefully he's a listener. Big weekly score of, as we've already talked about, 1676. A massive one there. Well done, Liam. To keep pace with that top 100, you needed a round score of 1537. So both Jono and our weekly winner, Liam, have beaten that quite considerably. And that was also down from a 1561 last week. So it does show that there's a fair bit of variance in the teams at the moment, which should give you a bit of hope that you can jump up the rankings. And for total points in terms of the top 100, you will need 14,840 points overall. Definitely something I'm very close to. Free Kick League update. Noffy, we have a problem. Caleb, taking the league in the Free Kick League, taking the league overall. Well done to Caleb once again. 60 coaches in our Free Kick League are in that top 100. So we've added 4 of them from last round, which is pretty impressive. And there are now some percentage numbers that I have no idea what they mean. So whoever put those down, please read them out.
I was the one who did that. So we've got 50% of the top 10, 56% of the top 25, and 56% of the top 50 are in the Free Kick League.
We have done well
Nice.
there because we've managed to get Liam to read the end of the Watch and Wait scoreboard. So he did contribute in sort of 2 ways, really. He was already in the Watch and Wait scoreboard, but we've got him to read a little bit out as well. So I think that's a very good way to end that segment.
Yes, and before we go on to the hot topics, we've now done, 38 or so episodes on this pre-season, or this whole season rather. If you've been listening to us every week and you're still listening along now, thank you. We appreciate it. And if you would like to share your love, we would absolutely love to hear from you via a review on wherever you get your podcasts. It'll make its way over to us. Very helpful to review us both on the official AFLW Fantasy podcast stream and the Free Kick stream. So, if you're going to leave a review, might as well leave 2. So, yeah, let us know what you think and hopefully 5 stars. But hot topics time. We're getting near the end, so this is a line-by-line run-through of strategic musings. I can't say that word very well. Strategy chat.
Nice.
End of the line. Final fortnight targets and low ownership targets. So starting off with defenders, we've got some high concentration owners here, and Will's going to probably chat us through his disastrous backline.
Yes. Liam, I'll let you take out the strategic musings because, you finished top of the rankings and I'm outside the top 1,000, so I feel like your strategy is probably more useful than mine.
Yeah, Will and I are just listening on this episode.
Okay. So just having a look at the ownership numbers inside the top 100 for defenders, there's a very clear top three. So that's TLR, Neve McLaughlin, and Serene Watson, all of whom are above 83%. And then things start to get a little dicier. So it is going to be that a lot of teams are going to have at least one trade in the backline this week. Emma Carney, Sarah Goodwin, Maeve Chaplin, Jade Ellinger, Charlie Thomas, and Cambridge McCormick are all players with more than 5% ownership inside the top 100. And so I think there's a case to be made that you could be trading out of any and all of them. It's very unfortunate if you have those 8 players that I've just reeled off. But, if you've managed to hack the game like that, power to you. It is definitely going to be, and it's probably also one of the toughest lines to find targets that are,
value.
Going to have a guaranteed role and a guaranteed high score. I think we'd come in with some confidence about Maeve Chaplin, and now that Sarah Lampard is back, and there's just been some additions and a lot of changeover in defence, she's gone back from that 80 to 90 player she was 4 weeks ago, now down to a 50s and 60s player. So it has become very difficult to really nail down a target. And so it is, if ever there was a week to really pore over the numbers, and if ever there was a line, it is probably defence this week.
Yeah, I just want people to know that in our run sheet, we have specifically talked about this as end of the liners, and we have listed 4 names down, which is Emma Carney at 66%, Sarah Goodwin at 52%, Maeve Chaplin at 39%, and Charlie Thomas at 17%. This was being in the top 100. That is my entire backline, bar TLR. So good fun times, which is kind of what I was talking about before.
Pitch 'em all.
So obviously trading some of those players is going to be pivotal in my run towards the top 100. But who can I target, Liam or Jono, or anyone who has any suggestions? Because at the moment, the pool's pretty bare.
Well,
I have a suggestion.
Yeah.
Oh, I have something
Melhouse.
that I think is fantasy relevant to contribute. So I was going to say my one line and then hand back over to you guys. I feel like I've really been admiring Katie Lynch's hair this season. I quite like the look. And additionally, they've had a really good start to the season, albeit a late one, with a couple of decent scores at a nice price point that you can trade off someone to at about a 670k. I think she's probably, from what I've seen, the best option in that range to trade off to. And Gold Coast have got a pretty decent run to the rest of the season. So, I mean, this doesn't quite achieve the objective if everyone then trades in Katie Lynch because the ownership might be high, but currently very lowly owned. And that's my recommendation to Will and myself.
Which is good because
Right.
that was what I was already planning on doing. So I thank you for that suggestion,
Perfect.
Mel.
Well, just to jump back just a step, which is we've kind of rolled off a few names as end of the liners. Probably worth some discussion on prioritising these players because, as we talked about, they are relatively highly owned. So Emma Carney stands out. She's in 2/3 of the top 100. She was a very popular target a fortnight ago. Why does she need to trade out? I think that comes off the back of comments that came out of the post-match press conference from Darren Crocker, which is with very short turnaround times between their round 11 and round 12 games. They are going to be looking at resting players. Emma Carney is already someone that has been consistently rested in fourth quarters. She had, I think, mid-60% time on ground this past weekend. She screams to me like someone who will get a rest in the next 2 weeks and has a more difficult matchup this week for defenders in St Kilda. So presents to me as someone that you go, yep, thank you for coming. You've given me 2 good scores over 2 weeks, average 75. Now it's time to try and find the next option.
I would tend to agree with all of that, but I think if she's named this week, which is the key thing, I think we're watching out for those team names. I would have thought that she's probably a lower priority than some of these other names on the list who are scoring poorly, even if they're going to play both games.
Yeah, I think Charlie Thomas for me is a clear priority, and this fact that Thomas's ownership in the top 100 has fallen to 17% probably hints at the fact that a lot of people have jumped off. Goodwin and Chaplin are both interesting ones. You talked a little bit about Maeve Chaplin previously, but what do we think of Sarah Goodwin?
That role got real stinky real quickly in the second half against North Melbourne. It was a dreadful matchup for her, going up against the most restrictive team for midfielders at basically the toughest matchup, writ large, position independent. And then there was a push for her to go back to halfback in the fourth quarter and in the third quarter at times as well. I personally wasn't shocked by this because I don't think at the moment she's a good enough one-on-one defender to justify being in that midfielder if she's not the hit-out target. If we think about, Jono, you saw this game live, but she looked good as the hit-out target player and the clearance player against Hawthorn. She then got that role completely to herself against the Gold Coast Suns and, was in, I think she had 9 or some ridiculous number of centre clearances, top 5 all time in the AFLW. But since then, she's been asked to do some more defensive roles, if in part because Adelaide nearly lost to Gold Coast. And going up against North Melbourne, it really did again show that she probably lacks the experience inside the centre bounce midfield against the best teams. So I see her as being a player that does need to be traded. If particularly they are, Doc Clark is going to persist with some, positional flexibility inside that CBA midfield group.
Well, fair.
Yeah. Trader. In terms of ranking them, Carney, Goodwin, Chaplin, Thomas. If Carney isn't playing, then I think she's a guaranteed trade. But if she is playing, how would we order? Is it? I think it's Goodwin, Thomas, Chaplin, Carney.
Chaplin is very expensive. So I would be putting Chaplin higher above Carney. Is that what you said? Sorry?
Yes.
Goodwin, Thomas, Chaplin, Carney. Yeah, I think Carney's at the bottom.
I would probably put Thomas first because I think even with Goodwin not getting the role that you want, she's still outscoring Thomas. I get the cash is dropping, but to me, cash is far less important at this stage of the season.
Well, who
if you can't get the trade in that you want, then for sure. But Thomas to me is, I just don't see that scoring changing. This is not so much that her role has changed dramatically. There's just a whole bunch of other people around her that are stepping up. She's no longer the focal point, and it's just slowly been dropping off throughout the season. To me, I don't see Thomas putting up higher than a 60, with any sort of confidence over the next 2 weeks. Whilst Goodwin is gone, another 64. If you had to ride that 2 weeks, there's only, if you look at the last 3 averages for defenders, I think there's only a handful of them over 70. A 64 isn't dreadful.
What did Goodwin have? I think she was worse than that. Goodwin had
She had a 40-something this
42,
week, which was not great.
The advantage she does have is playing up against Port Adelaide, which will likely be a higher tackle affair, a higher contest. Contested situations where when she has been able to score well in bursts, say for example against Richmond, it was on the back of tackle. She had 9, she had 10 against the Suns, so that might be able to sustain some slightly better scoring. The biggest issue though is if Goodwin is back playing more of a defensive role off halfback or the wing, she's a 40s and 50s player again, and I think she has a lot more cash on her head to be able to get a better player. So that's I agree, Jono, it is a tough distinction. That's kind of why I lean more towards Goodwin out, but agree that Thomas has also completely lost her role in marking chains now, and so is now disposals only kick-ins her main source of scoring.
I mean, actually, the real question is, Will, with your 3 trades, which 3 of the 4 are you trading it?
Currently, I am planning on trading out Thomas and Chaplin, just because it gets me money to do the other trade I want to do, but I would quite happily trade probably Goodwin as well, but Goodwin unfortunately doesn't give me the money to do what I want to do elsewhere. But Thomas, I think, for me at least, is a must trade.
In terms of targets, this is another tough one. I think that at this stage, with how cheap they are, if you don't have TLR, great target. The next one, well, there's two more to talk about. One is with the foresight that Jono has, Shelley Heath is back to a 50% midfield role, tackling well. We did just see some semi-okay scores from Bombers midfielders against Brisbane based on a tackle game. So I do wonder if she's given some kind of role on Ali Anderson and tackles her way to a semi-decent defender score. And then I think it's, is it Jill? I can't remember actually who their last round matchup is against. And then the other one to talk about, Geelong, yeah. And we just saw what Bella Lewis was able to do again playing, and Emma Swanson playing those more defensive, high tackling roles. So I think Shelley Heath they will look like bad matchups on paper for midfielders, but I think Shelley Heath has her own niche of midfield scoring, and I think that that's okay. The other one to probably talk about just for the matchups that they have is Emma O'Driscoll. So has Richmond this week, and then also goes into Adelaide in the final game, both of whom are the best defensive matchups you can possibly imagine.
Emma O'Driscoll has Fremantle.
Oh, sorry, she has Adelaide. Well, Fremantle are also a great defensive matchup.
Yeah, yes, but not against herself.
Richmond and Adelaide, which are two best defensive matchups. And she, as much as she's pretty consistently a 60 scorer, every now and then, or at least for most of the season, she has 70s and 80s within her capabilities, and often they are in matchups where you would expect her to excel. So I think that she is a decent target at 723k. So you are making cash if you are downgrading Emma Carney. Whereas Shelley Heath is up over 800, so a little bit more difficult to get to.
I also think, I know Serene Watson's pretty highly owned, but I really think across the next 2 weeks, Watson's going to be the highest scoring defender, if it's not Neve McLaughlin.
Yeah, well, let's quick 10 seconds on that. Can we not, Reece Shaw, I'm speaking directly to you now. Can you not give me palpitations at random points of games when they're unnecessary? Neve McLaughlin is not a forward. She does not need to play forward. I
think this is really more on you having palpitations during game. This is a football game. Let's take a beat.
You know what? You know what gives me palpitations? Bad football decisions. That's what gives me palpitations. That's what gets my blood boiling. And Neve McLaughlin is great when the ball is inside 50. She is extremely fast. She makes great choices. She has rapidly improved this season. If she's in the forward line, though, she can't get the ball to herself, and she is Gold Coast best ball mover. Keep her playing 50 to 60% time of defence and then throw her in the midfield. I do not need to see another forward pocket stint from Neve McLaughlin ever again. Thank you.
Noted. I'd also like to chuck in Peace, who was my late addition to the people to keep watching from last week in my absence. She got an 81. I know it's easy to score against Freo, but 81's a pretty good score. Taking the kick-ins at the moment, much to my disappointment. But I think that she has some good potential, and she's nice and cheap. This is the price range I'm looking at here in the 1200 ranks. We've got the Katie Lynch's, we've got the Emily Paces, we've got the Harriet Cordners even. A bit of a roller coaster, probably a bit of a riskier one, but, has had some pretty consistently high scores for a little bit. These are the types of players I'm thinking of, because this is the bucket that I'm playing with.
No, I think it's a good option, really. I mean, Carlton this week, they're going to probably score pretty heavily, and they're also inaccurate. Port Adelaide also scoring very heavily right now, so the kick-out train is at least going to be pretty handy. I will say Port Adelaide were incredibly accurate against the Hawks. They were creating fantastic scoring opportunities that they were able to convert. But, yeah, I like this play a lot.
Any other defender comments?
Just a couple of other players to mention, and this will be based on what we might hear during the week. Emma Swanson, if she is going to continue to play roles in the midfield, is going to be scoring above what she's priced at. So average of 57 this year, but midfield role is probably closer to 70. And so at 662k could be a solid enough option. And then there was someone, I could have sworn I had in my head someone else to talk about, but they've now completely escaped me. So, yeah, I quite like Emma Swanson. Oh, actually, another one who's playing... I now remember. Another one who's playing defensive roles in the midfield is Morecambe from the Bombers. Has scored like 250s, but if you are well and truly desperate, Morks is 574k and will probably get a role. Well, I suspect she'll get a role on Eliza West this week. So that sounds like it's a tackle role. So just a very, very, very dangerous throw at the stumps. But if you are desperate for cash or very low on cash, she could be somewhere to go just based on the role she's got at the minute.
I like it. And shall we move on to the midfielders? So I feel like the midfielders is the most uniform line, and it has been for the last 5 weeks or so. I'm not really sure if we're going to be doing any big trades here because other than differentiation, a lot of people have the high-scoring midfielders already. I'm personally not looking for differentiation unless I have a out. But that's just me. What are you guys thinking at the top end over there? Are you differentiating for uniqueness, or are you kind of locking down on the top 4?
I think at this stage, I think there's an option there, potentially with someone like Kiara Bowers, who, has been a little hit and miss. I think a fantastic last quarter by herself and Ebony Marinoff, who put up, 46-point and 58-point last quarters to save their scores. I think it's just, when you look at the last 3 average, let alone the season average, it's just these same 5 players. They're absolutely dominating right now. I mean, sometimes you can get a player like Britt Benici who pops, or Mon Conti, or even Charlie Rowbottom. I think the option's there. Maybe in the last 2 rounds, this is the time to do it. But looking at the fixtures that we're getting here, I really don't think there are any obvious plays. I mean, Mon Conti, perhaps the next 2 weeks could be a great one. Abby Darrick is another that I would consider. But really, I don't think there's any super obvious plays that I would be looking at. So I think I'm probably going to stick with the 5 myself.
If you're doing a 1-week trade, like a luxury trade, I reckon Britt Benici versus Gold Coast could be a nice one. Pop score, but very lowly owned in the top 100 for now. But you're not really bringing her home against... Who have they got after that?
Brisbane.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I was like, there's a red flag at the end.
It always ends with a flag, yeah.
Whereas I think, I'm not looking to do a trade in the midfield this week, short of there being some shenanigans from North Melbourne, which I don't think is an impossibility. I wonder if the possibility of taking votes away for the end of the season medal might mean that Garner and Riddell play for the next 2 weeks. But I also think there's a world where they rest Garner, in which case Mon Conti next week against the Suns is where I'd be looking. So if you need to do 2 trades in your midfield and you don't like your M5, I would be going Benici this week and then Benici across to Mon Con next week.
I can see them resting some players in round 12. I think it's less likely that they rest as many in round 11, because that way I think it's important for them to keep the streak going, but Hawthorn aren't in terrific form, and I think they're worried about round 12. I think they want to be ready for finals, and that 5-day break coming into round 12, I think that's where they're going to rest more of their players.
I would flag Kate Hoare is possibly the only one that I've got as like a downgrade or end of the line, whatever we're calling it, coming up against Brisbane and then going into Geelong after already losing a bit of money. I don't think she's that highly owned anymore, but that's the only kind of popular-ish M5 that I'm getting some alarms from.
I think some people might still have someone like a Patrikios who, coming into North and the Bulldogs, and also was injured on the weekend from memory, so definitely wouldn't be holding on there too much longer. Perhaps Georgie Prasparkas coming up against the Bulldogs, who just find a way to have incredibly dour fantasy scoring matches, so I would be a little wary there as well.
Okay, well, short of Will having any insights to add.
I'm just trying to get Garner this week, so if Garner does get rested this week, it will possibly mean that I can get rid of Sarah Goodwin.
Oh, well, there you go.
But other than that, I completely agree. Those big 5, they're the ones you want.
Over to the Rucks. Strategically, why would you be touching your rucks now? Clearly the time to do your ruck trades was weeks 1 to 8 consecutively.
On the
We're
bench.
in week 10, guys. Like, no more time for ruck trades.
I was about to, Mel, very earnestly respond and say, oh, I'm sure there are people that got stuck with Wales. And then you've gone, no, I'm actually talking about the fact that I made 14 ruck trades in 8 weeks. So fair.
I was trying so hard. I scrolled down. I saw your note there, and I was trying to laugh as quietly as I could while you were saying it.
So yes, I'll defer to someone that's not me for ruck trades because I've clearly not nailed those.
I think the big question here is if you are not an owner of Matilda Schultz, is she the number one target for a trade next week? Because she will go up against GWS, and we've seen now what she does when she goes up against rucks that are not able to hang with her physically. We saw it in the second half against Mac Earley, who did a valiant effort to tackle her way to a great score. But Mac Earley looked absolutely exhausted, and Matilda Schultz is a unicorn. She is as physically a dominant a player compared to the rest of her position as almost any player in the AFLW. And I can't help but imagine what she might do to Ailish O'Dowd at ruck contests and how she might just absolutely body her and also be able to kick a few goals. So it's not a trade for this week, but I think it's eminently possible as a trade for next week. And if you are someone who is stuck with Lucy Wales, then I would be looking to trade for Schultz, not for Strong.
Not Lauren Wackfar?
Not the full forward Lauren Wackfar, apparently. None of this 50% mid-time, ruck time. She's now, 15% ruck contests and sitting as a deep forward.
This is the week we were talking about Alice Edmonds. Does the 54 that she had against Geelong turn you off? Because I think it just makes her cheaper.
I don't think it turns me off at all. If you are...
Coming up against Geelong, great matchup.
It is as good as a matchup as you can imagine. And also, just a quick shout out to currently the coach who is in 27th. Their team's name is Shiny Helmets. They quite clearly missed the very late out of Lucy Wales with appendicitis and didn't want to get stuck with a donut as coverage. Swung their trades around. I think they might have had to skip Niamh McLaughlin. They did bring in Katie Lynch, so got a semi-decent cheap score in defence. But their bench on the ruck is now Steph Wales. So they are the only coach inside the top 100 with Steph Wales, and they are almost certainly the only coach in the entire game with both Steph and Lucy Wales in their ruck line. So I thought that was deeply, deeply entertaining. I don't know how they're going to fix that this week because I feel like they might end up doing 2 ruck trades. But let's see where that takes them. I thought it was just hilarious when that was pointed out to me, and I just thought it needed to be noted.
Very fair. I'm glad that I have Edmonds because I do think she has one of the best matchups this week coming into Geelong. Will she make me the 300k required to then possibly pick up Schultz the week after? Unlikely.
It is Geelong though, so it's not impossible. It's not impossible.
The 300 ranks to climb you back up to 1,000th though. A little more possible.
Maybe. But yeah, she's also, like you mentioned, she's gotten a little bit cheaper, so that does help anyone that's trying to jump on the train. Is there anything else you guys want to share on ruck thoughts?
Jono, for you, Strom owner, are you planning around doing a Schultz trade next week for the matchup against GWS, or are you willing to back in Strom to possibly do what you did in round 10 last year and have, 150 million points in the final game of the season?
I don't think that's as likely against. Last year round 10, that was a matchup against, a strong recognised rock lineup. I think Jess Allen is at least enough there that she's going to have a more regular score. But I do think I don't like to plan trades too far ahead. So at the moment I'm keeping my eye on it, but I don't think it's likely.
Fair enough.
I'm planning for it.
Okay, well then, over to the forwards. Well, I'm excited that Malloy might be coming back because that kind of solves some of my problems. But strategic musings-wise, do we think that there's a clear area that you should be heading in strategy-wise?
Yeah, Jono, you can go on this one.
I think, to me, this is the line where you differentiate your team the most. I think that every week we have so much chaos in the forward line. If you look at the top scorers from last round, so few of them are over 800k, and even less were over 800k before the round started. Like, it is a potluck at the best of times, and I think this is when you get the right matchup, when you get the right score, it's the sort of thing that takes you up to the top. So this is probably where I would be trying to take your shots in the last 2 rounds.
What I thought was fascinating looking at the numbers was there's a fairly high degree of concentration amongst the 4 most popular forwards. So that being Ham, Goldsworthy, Woodland, and Too Good. They're all up above basically 2/3. The 5th most highly owned player is 61%, and that's Imogen Barnett. She is the most difficult player to predict this week. Has a game against the Gold Coast Suns, which
All signs point to great.
All signs point to great-ish, because we just saw Edmonds have a lower hit-out game, and that contributed to her lower scoring. But then
True.
Imogen Barnett's role in the second half
Yeah.
was less than inspiring. I will say that, like, as much as Sabs Frederick got a bunch of hit-outs, I also think she had, like, 3 horrific turnovers, particularly in the last 20 minutes. And so I would not be sitting there confidently saying, like, she looked good enough to take it. She did look to be... She's a better hit-out ruck. She wins more ruck contests than Barnett does. But some of her kicking was... There was one kick in particular that sticks in my mind where she just, like, took off an unnecessarily dangerous 45-degree kick across goal inside D50 that then got spoiled. And I think it might have, 30 seconds later led to a goal for Richmond. So that was less than ideal. But Barnett forward is actually great, right? Like, you think about how easy it is for key forwards to score against Gold Coast. Emma McDonald just won Rising Star and kicked 3. And she was playing as a key... a mobile key forward against the Suns. She's just really difficult to pick.
I don't think Barnett is scoring well as a forward, though. I mean, she basically just had 5 points and a half and a 30 against the Dogs. I just don't think it's a naturally scoring role for her. So, forward, sure, is good, generally against the Gold Coast, but I don't think it suits the player necessarily. And if she does go into the ruck, we've just seen Edmonds struggle, and Lucy Wales only had a 61 the week before that. I think this has trade written all over it.
Oh, no.
Unless there was some word that they were going to flip it back around, because I think the problem with her playing forward is that it cuts off one of her main sources of scoring, which is her superior intercept marking capabilities. Like, that is where she takes a majority of her marks.
She just needs to have a role called the floating across half-back loose. That's all she needs to do. I don't know why
she is a centre-half... She's a centre-half back ruck. Like, she just, sits outside the arc and just floats and roams, and, she might take the odd centre-back, odd ruck contest inside forward 50, but she is there to take intercept marks, and at this point, she's done it for this long during the season. We can't call it a fluke. We can't put it down to, high variance just consistently happening week on week. So, if she can regain that role, I again think it could be an excellent week for her. I think it's another 70-plus score if she regains the role she's had for a majority of the season. It is just really difficult to pick, because I don't think that Sam Wright's going to tell us who's going to play where. And so if you've got her, the trade-out option, you're okay. You're probably insulated. You're probably going to be able to make a little bit of cash and find another player who can score a 60 or 70 this week, grease the wheel, move on. If you don't have, a set top 5, for all intents and purposes, it's a great matchup against the Suns. And would be a great way to match the top 100 if you were to bring her in. It's just, again, near impossible to do it with any confidence.
I don't know how I feel about this now. I'm torn.
Well, I've done my job then because I too am torn. I don't know what the answer to this is. It is a conundrum. It is not something I have a silver bullet for in this case.
So essentially nothing's fine. And
pretty much.
And no one knows anything.
We also probably need to talk about Courtney Hodder.
yes.
Take it away.
Very surprising, that one, for a lot of people.
If it wasn't chaotic enough before Wales and before Hodder was out, Jono, I said to you at the start of On Air that this was the most chaotic week for injuries, and it just got a whole bunch worse with apparently some quad soreness and awareness for Courtney Hodder that she did at captain's run, got worse on Saturday, and meant that she was late out with an hour to go as the most expensive forward in the competition. Comments from Starcevic aren't great, if I'm being honest. He did not sound confident that she would play this week. I think they're going to try and give her every chance, given how important it is for them to be able to maintain a top 4 spot, given it is against Melbourne. But it is a massive watch on the injury list as to whether she gets up to play. If you already own her, you now have the world is your oyster. You have so much cash that you can make, and you could make some spectacular trades elsewhere, fix up a whole bunch of things. But you probably don't want to, because if she does play, I think she'll score excellently, and she is unique. She's in, I think, 9 or 10 of the top 20 teams.
I mean, we've gone so far, late on the weekend, so many people would have tried to trade her out amongst, or an already pretty limited group of people.
And that kind of brings us to the next point, which is, well, if you've got Barnett, who are the targets this week? Because if Hodder had been playing, it was a guarantee to play, and Starcevic is like, yep, it was just precautionary, basically a slight on the fact that the Bombers are crap, then she'd be the number one target. You'd be trying to find ways to make the cash to get up there. You'd do one trade in defence, you'd do a downgrade on your bench, and you'd take Barnett all the way up, get the 300k or whatever to bring her in. The question now is, who are you targeting instead? Because Woodland, Ham, Goldsworthy, and Toogood are all very popular players to own. And then if you look at the last 3 averages, the only player that might play this week who is in amongst that group inside the top 7, who is actually playing and not injured, is Charlie Mullins. Is Charlie Mullins is she the top target though, right? She just went up 147k. Have you kind of missed the boat?
Charlie Mullins is a great option. Great option.
Well, as someone has written here, the best time to trade in Charlie Mullins was 2 weeks ago. So I'd say maybe yes. But I don't know. It's tricky because there's a lot of, if Ash Maloney hadn't lost her 119k, she would have been the same price as Imogen Barnett now. And there's just been a lot of fluctuation in this forward line.
Well, that kind of is the next option, sub 800k. I think you've got Chloe Malloy, because it sounds like she'll be back from her back injury. And then the 2 Geelong forwards, so Maloney and Parry, as potential targets at this stage. Are there any other, Eileen Gilroy had a 90 on the weekend, but then has North Melbourne in round 12.
I think the one that interests me is Mac Erdley, to be honest, because I don't think Lucy Wales is coming back from an injury, well, not from appendicitis within a week. It takes a few weeks to recover from that, let alone to play at an elite standard of footy. So with Jess Vukic also going out with concussion, I think her and Simmons are going to be up to the top job, and quite frankly, I think she'll keep tackling her way to some high scores.
Yeah, she's someone I had on the sheet, except her plus 140k is a little bit unattractive because she went up a very large amount last week. But you're right, Wales is probably still going to be out. So I think she's a good cash maker if you go down from Barnett. I've chucked in a couple of others. KB, my late addition to the trade, to the 3-week home run. She's got a good run home and she seems to be in good form. She's not very highly owned at the moment, and I think she's a little bit cheaper again. Oh, just looking for it now.
705k.
Yeah, delightful. So only went up a little bit, 705. Nice price range there. I've also got Hartwig. Hartwig has been on a bit of a tear, and she has had 350s and a 70 in the last few weeks. Her run home isn't amazing, but it's been similarly difficult to the last few weeks. If she can go somewhere in that like 70s range on her kind of lower price point, that seems pretty attractive. But these are like, we're really dropping down now. She's like a 700K. But these are some of like the lower priced options. I guess Mac Erdley being 639 is also quite attractive at that price point. But I think like you said at the start, there's a few different ways to like differentiate within this part of the forwards, especially if you're going downgrade options.
I think the question is for someone like, okay, it's probably a bit niche to me. I've got Charlie Mullins, right? 802k. Is it worthwhile downgrading her to Mac Erdley, given Mac Erdley's role? And she is now in a role that can get her 90s on the back of double-digit tackles. That's the tough one.
No, I think you should downgrade to Barnett and save yourself the 2K instead.
That's great thinking. I really would like a more stressful team. I love it. It's beautiful.
You want more heart palpitations, I heard.
Yes,
you're not getting enough.
Exactly. Yep. I want blood boiling even more. I want role change
you want
galore.
Dead at 35.
Yep, that's it. Is that the score or my age? It doesn't matter. Works the same way.
Round rank. Either way. I would defer to Jono for his advice for you as the next closest scoring co-host, but he seems to be a bit preoccupied at the moment. Are you available, Jono? Do you have any advice on Liam's conundrum of having Charlie Mullins at 502k? Should he downgrade to Erdley? If only he was here to speak for himself.
Yeah, we're a big fan of this Liam guy. He's fantastic for listening in to us.
I love it. Is there anyone you'd be willing to say of those top 4 most highly owned forwards that will be outscored by Mac Erdley over the next 2 weeks? So that's Ham, Goldsworthy, Woodland, and Too Good.
I assume Jono thinks Mac Erdley will outscore all of them. Is that correct, Jono?
Some brown and gold tinted spectacles on. Well, good. That matches my lack of confidence then in predicting, because Bonnie Too Good is the one that I'm also worried about, but also not like petrified because her role has markedly improved from last year where her bad games were like worried about single digits at half-time bad.
Yes, true. I have nothing else to add on the forwards. Shall we move to captains?
I want to give some credit to a listener who wrote in a question on Twitter. And if you listen to On Air this week, this will absolutely make sense. It's from Nick, and he says, "Thank you for the Vindaloo recommendations. I've now, got to make some trades for this week. Thoughts on a Carolina Reaper spice option in Caitlin Gould back this week
Ooh.
as a forward option coming off her broken wrist. It would have almost been better if she'd played against North Melbourne, because then her price would have absolutely dropped and she'd have been an awesome spot for F6. If you are in the ability to, roll a looper through and you've got that kind of cash in your side. But Caitlin Gould up against Port Adelaide at 629k. She is more than capable of having 70s and 80s. She has been a premium forward. Is she too spicy? She'll be very lowly owned.
I was going to say, I don't think that's too spicy. I think that's great. I was very bullish on Gould before she went out. And I did not realise that she's coming back this week. So hopefully she comes back. She has 2 wrists. She can mark and do her thing.
Yeah. It's just a question of, is she spicy for the sake of it, when I think Mac Erdley is round about the same price. We're talking within 60k.
Yeah, but how highly owned is Mac Eardley going to be by the time the round starts? Like that, she's very attractive right now, and we've just spoken her up. I would be going Gould. I think Gould's a great pick.
I love the confidence in the influence of talking up.
Compared to another player that we're currently talking about. You're not buying it, Liam.
No, I don't think I really want to do that. I think Mac Earley's a better play, and you get Caitlin Gould next week as your F6 looper, which does kind of bring us. This is another question that we got asked on Twitter from Childs, which is, I won't go into the specifics on the players, but if you could afford to have a D6 or an F6, which position would you be looking to loop at?
It's a tough one. I'd be looking to loop in the defensive line because my defense sucks, but I think the forward line's the most variable one. So I think for those that are doing well, forward is probably the one I'd look at.
Agreed. And I think Eardley is a great play, and then Maloney and Brennan are two other players we've discussed who I think are more than capable of putting a big score on the day. So I think I prefer the forward line. Now we can go to captains.
Okay, well, what have you got for us this week?
Well, in captain's corner, my thinking so far is Bowers and Noffy. So Noffy VC on the Friday night into Kiara Bowers with an excellent matchup this week against Richmond. Beyond that, I think a lot of the rankings for captain options this week are going to depend on what happens with North Melbourne, because I think that will drive what happens with a Garner, with a Riddell, whether or not there are going to be any shifting sands inside their supreme scorers. And then as for Laura Gardner, who has been in, ripping hot form, I will be keenly watching any press conferences from Daisy Pearce to see if the Emma Swanson, Bella Lewis team tag, an extremely hard team tag, is going to go to Laura Gardner this week. Because if it is, I think that's a worry and I wouldn't be making her captain. But at the moment, the two that I'm confident on are Noffy into Bowers, like it's 2022 again.
I like it. Well, our trade plans for the upcoming week. As usual, I enjoy doing my trade plans while we're discussing the podcast. So I've currently got Charlotte Wilson, who you talk about heart attacks. Oh boy, when she was on 14 and then she got a free kick against for 11 in the second quarter, sorry. And then she went off injured. I was like, no, I'm not having an 11 on my field.
I've already got a 25.
I've already got Ash Maloney. I'm not having this. I was like, I'm praying for her to get at least 40, and she came through. Now it's time for her to depart my team. I'm thinking Katie Lynch in, Barnett to Malloy, and Richardson to Ferrier. And I have vivid memories of having Verrier in my team, being at a pub, being absolutely furious, going, I'm never bringing in a defender from my side, my own team again, because you want the ball in their hands, you want your team to win. And it was Verrier that I had, but I'm ready to do it again. It's been a couple of years,
again.
And I'm ready for the Cesvez.
The fact that you've gone for arguably two of the most ready to be heard again players we've ever seen in our backlines in Verrier and Katie Lynch is quite impressive. You basically just need to bring in Tam Smith and you've got the trifecta.
Yeah, so I'm opened my heart to pain, essentially, is my trades for this weekend. What about you guys?
Will, what are you thinking?
Well, my number one trade priority is get Garner because I'm sick of missing out on one of the big five. So I have made myself a little bit of money by trading out Chaplin and Thomas to get in Katie Lynch, and I've gone for Emily Pease. Mel's convinced me.
Yes.
I like the kickouts, and Jono's talk about how Carlton love to kick it behind also helped. So a little bit cheaper than some of the options. Emily Pease into that back line, which allows me to get Jazzy Garner. So now we just have to wait for her to be rested this week to throw all those plans out the window.
Oh, don't mention window. I'm scarred.
Me too.
I thought you were going to be scarred by peace, but it's just scars
Oh,
going everywhere.
don't worry. I'm scarred by peace. She is remarkable capability to turn kick-ins into turnovers. So enjoy that experience.
Never you mind, Liam, because I also Piper Window probably single-handedly managed to stop my run of making 400 ranked jumps. So if it wasn't for Piper Window, I'd probably be ahead of you right now. As we know, that's definitely how rankings work. So
Absolutely.
I can definitely
Cannot
feel the
fight
pain on that one. So Liam, what are you doing?
At the moment, I'm going Carney out, and I'm going Brit Gutnecht out. One of the trade-ins I'll be doing is Shelley Heath. The other, I'm considering going Emma O'Driscoll. I can also afford to go up to someone like Erica Roche, which I will look at very strongly if it appears that Emma Carney is going to be the player to miss. And that'll be facilitated by someone in my side, Annabelle Johnson or Lauren Young, down to near 300k. So at the moment, it's Kellyanne Hogan, who's had back-to-back 30s and is at 301k.
Solid. And Jono.
I'm pretty lucky at the moment because I was planning on bringing in Courtney Hodder and then didn't. I actually have about 300k in the bank right now, which is pretty nice. So at the moment, my plans are to grab Serene Watson. I'm going to take Emma Carney up there. And then in my forward line, I've got 2 trades planned. One is to go Maloney to Mackenzie Erdley. And then the other one is Imogen Barnett out. Most likely to Bonnie Toogood. But in the event that Emma Carney plays and Courtney Hodder also plays, then I might trade Maeve Chaplin to Serene Watson and go Barnett up to Hodder instead. So a few kinks to be worked out there.
These all sound so nice. I'd like all of
Not a
those trades.
Sarah Verrier in sight.
No Sarah Verriers, Katie Lynch's. Oh, goodness.
Desperate times call for desperate measures. Well, I hope you enjoyed listening. As always, you can find us on Free Kick W Pod on all of your social medias. And I still struggle with this, even though we've been doing it for 10 weeks. Join our league if you haven't already. We would love to get up to 70 people from the top 100 in our Free Kick League. You can find the code in the description wherever you get your podcasts. Please don't forget to leave a review if you like what you're listening to. And we will chat to you later, probably for the Free Kick on air later in the week. Bye.
See everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.